So welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be doing our black set review for Strixhaven. Yanks is on a call with us again, and we're going to get through each and every black card and discuss its rating 1 to 5 for limited use. Say hello.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so our first card, Arrogant Poet, guys. It is a 2/1 for 2, that whenever it attacks, you may pay 2 life. If you do, it gains flying until end of turn.
Yeah, it's a fine card, aggressive card. You're not going to want to play this in a control deck because it's going to be a bad blocker. But not exciting. But I'll play this in any aggressive deck, or particularly in like a Witherbloom life gain deck where I've got plenty of life to work with.
Yeah, so while we were doing the little introduction bit earlier, when we just kind of were waiting for people to get into the channel, someone mentioned that they didn't like this card because the life gain was a little bit too steep. But actually, I think the Witherbloom is going to be the key part of this, where you're gaining life just as is naturally throughout your deck, and then you're using this to kind of ping over with a little extra reach. I know there's a bunch of drain and a bunch of pests that gain you life as well. So I think also Witherbloom is where you're going to see a ton of your lifelink.
Yeah, and black-green tends to a lot of times, gum up the ground and grind games, and just having a creature that can fly over a stalled board is nice.
Yeah, you're gonna have the little pests that go along with this. So let's say they have a 5/5 beast of some sort, and then you're chumping a pest, draining for 1 when the pest dies, and then flying over the top for 2. It's gonna help you win those races. I think this is going to be a much better 2-drop for those decks than we might think for a typical lose 2 life kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I still think I have it right around a 2. Excuse me, a 2. In the average deck, at least.
Okay, I mean, I'm maybe a little higher on it just because at its worst, it's a 2/1 for 2, but anytime you're ahead on life totals, this card is just better. So it doesn't even need a ton of synergy, you just need to not be behind. Life is a resource, I'm pretty happy to use it.
Yep.
Again, not great, but I don't think its floor is that low, and I mean its upside is fine, but not huge. So, all right, moving along. Baleful Mastery, guys. 4 mana instant, rare. You may pay 2 rather than pay the spell's mana cost. If 2 was paid, opponent draws a card. Exile target creature or planeswalker. Wow, this seems great.
Yeah, my first reading on this card was, well, I'm never paying 2 mana to let them draw a card, but it's not really true, because a lot of times with instant speed removal, you're trying to get a 2-for-1 with it. And if you can pay 2, you keep less mana open, and okay, now it's a 2-for-2, you've still traded evenly.
Yeah, so it just gives the card more flexibility. Feed the Serpent was a 4 mana with 2 pips, 2 black pips, so even as is without the secondary flexibility clause, this is just better and easier to cast because it doesn't require 2 black. It exiles, which Feed the Serpent did as well, and we rated that around a 4 as premium removal.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to like this card. Even if you don't like the 1 in a black clause, that's fine. You just treat it like you just said, as Feed the Serpent.
Yeah, so
casting cost.
A lot of times too, I find Feed the Serpent, I have trouble keeping it open because it is so mana restrictive with the double black and 4 mana. So you can hold this open a fair amount of time, and then you're just okay, well, I want to play this creature. It most likely anything they play is fine, but then they come out with a combat trick, and you're okay, in a pinch I can still use this. So it's just only Feed the Serpent with a lot of upside.
Agreed.
All right, 4?
Yep, premium removal.
Great. It's a rare, so I mean that makes sense.
Yeah.
Bracklash?
Brackish Trudge.
Brackish Trudge.
Brackish Trudge. It's a 3 mana 4/2 fungus beast that enters the battlefield tapped. And you can pay 1 in a black to bring it back from your graveyard to your hand, only if you gained life this turn. So clearly trying to sit into that Witherbloom life gain deck. Pretty aggressive at 3 mana 4/2. And that's fine if you're trying to be aggressive, because you can't attack that first turn anyway.
No, I definitely agree. And entering tapped is usually not a problem, considering you're getting a free card back. 4/2s for 3 are pretty common. They usually do a little something. They have reach in the last set. Or sometimes I guess they're just maybe in red. They typically don't do anything, but the stats for the mana cost are fine. And it's in those Witherbloom colors. So a pest dies, you're going to be getting this back. into your hand for only 2 mana. It's a pretty reasonable cost. And it doesn't say on your turn only, right? So you can do it at the end of your turn, or at the end of your opponent's turn if you like chump a pest or whatever. I think this card's fine.
Yeah, I actually really like this card. I'm usually really down on 3 mana 4/2s because they tend to trade down a lot, with 2 drops, the 2/1 Arrogant Poet or, something that can kill it pretty easily. But the ability mitigates that because you don't mind trading down if you're going to get it back.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just card advantage at that point.
Yeah.
But you do need to have a fair amount of life gain triggers. So this is like the Witherbloom deck, and then maybe not in the Silverquill deck, right?
Yeah, because for once we didn't see Black-White be life gain, so it's probably, in a pinch you can play it in that deck because you'll probably have some black life gain. It's still a 3 mana 4/2, which is playable, but you want to be in black.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm thinking a 2/5 still. What do you think?
I've actually got a little higher. I've got it at a 3, but again, it's going to be a little synergy dependent.
Yeah, I think the 2/5 is for the average deck that maybe doesn't have like a ton of triggers for me, but it's going to depend on how easy the synergy is to come around. I guess we haven't seen much of the life gain yet, so I'm a little hesitant.
Yeah, I think the reason I like this a little more than say the Arrogant Poet, and I just think it has a really high upside. That just keeps coming back and back and back and just grinds your opponent out.
Yes, if it is coming back and back and back, I would definitely rate it higher too. I just don't know how often that's going to happen.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas with the Arrogant Poet, I was like, well, a fair amount of games I'm ahead on life total, so it's fine, right?
Yep.
You don't really need... It's kind of self-contained in that way, whereas this requires a lot of outside help. Yep. But that could change once we see the rest of the set. If there's a couple of black life linkers that are at common speed, then I'm pretty happy with it. I'll bump it up a number if we get there. Callous Black Mage, guys. 3 mana, 2/1, bit expensive. When Callous Black Mage enters the battlefield, choose one. Create one green and black pest. A black and green pest, sorry. Small text. When it dies, you gain 1 life. Or you can draw a card, lose a life, or exile target player's graveyard.
Yeah, very flexible card. It looks overpriced at 3 mana 2/1, but really your minimum here is a 3 mana 3/2 in stats over 2 bodies because you can always take the pest token.
Yes. But even then, like for a rare, it seems very underwhelming. Like I actually like the mana cost for what it does. I would rate this reasonably high for playability, but for a rare, Like I'm probably still taking a removal spell over this, which is kind of rare for me.
Yeah. It is. I agree. It's a little underwhelming for a rare. But you have a choice between 3 mana 3/2 or 3 mana 2/1 that replaces itself, and occasionally the graveyard might be relevant, especially against Lorehold.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with that. But so, again, it's like the abilities are all useful and very flexible, so I rate this reasonably high. But they're so low impact for a rare.
Yeah. No argument there.
What's your rating for it?
I have it right around a 3. Happy to play it, not first picking it.
Great. I think that as well. It is something I am very happy to have in my deck, but not something I'm like, oh yes, awesome, lucky.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, Confront the Past. We have our first black lesson. Choose one. Return target Planeswalker card with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. I mean, granted, probably don't have Planeswalkers. Or remove X loyalty counters. So not particularly playable in limited, but I mean, it's fine if you have lessons. Like it's not going to come in handy very often, but if you have learn cards and you can pick this up on the cheap, I'm definitely happy to have it as an emergency card for sure.
Yeah, you're most of your limited games, this is going to be completely dead. But that's fine. It's going to sit in your sideboard anyway.
Yeah, it's nice that this isn't something that has to go in your deck. Otherwise, I would say it's never playable. Even if they show a Planeswalker, I don't know that I want to run this card.
No. Now, if I have, say, Professor Onyx, which we'll come to later, the Black Planeswalker, I'm going to take this a little higher now because it gives me a second copy of it, potentially out of the grid.
Definitely, yeah. I was only looking at it from like a removal perspective.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we're talking a rare that then requires you to also have a mythic.
So I'm gonna say it's hard to say. How do you rate lesson cards that you want to pick, that you don't want to actively pick up unless they're very cheap? Like, you don't take it over any other playable for like a main deck, but I'm happy to have this in every single black deck too, if I have the learn spells. It's a weird rating.
Yeah, I mean, I think I still really just give it a 1 because I'm never taking this over anything remotely useful. But if I end up with it, great. um, just so 90 plus per 95% of your games, it's a completely dead card.
Yeah. Oh yeah, probably even
higher than that.
Yeah, it's yeah, so sorry guys, this is a weird aspect to ratings that we've never really come across, because you definitely want it, right? Like I would probably take this over 20 to 23rd playable cards if I have the learn in my deck, because it is just a really nice thing to have. I don't know, give it like a 2.
Yeah, I think we're a little different on this. I think I'm not taking this over any playable.
Yeah, if you, and the other thing is, like, how do you like make the clause like you have to have learn?
Yeah,
it's such a tough card to evaluate, to be sure. Yeah. Part of my thought too is that when people are looking at these on the untapped overlay, like, they're going to see a 1 and they're going to just like pass it up, just totally skim over it.
Yeah.
So
they still should read what gets said. But you're right, especially when it comes on Premier Draft time.
Yeah, Premier, Crushing Disappointment, guys. 4 mana, each player loses 2 life. You draw 2 cards. Each player loses 2 life. Interesting.
Yeah, we see the lose 2 life, draw 2 cards effects. Usually at like 2 mana or 3 mana, but then it's only you losing the life.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm happy with paying extra mana just to make them lose 2 life.
It's also instant speed. We typically don't see that.
True, the instant speed does help.
Are you willing to pay an extra mana to make it instant? And like, have a far less downside to it, kind of?
I'll play this card, but I'm not, it's not unplayable. I'm not happy with it.
Why play this when you can play Tezzeret's Gambit?
Exactly.
I think that the instant speed makes it pretty good. It is a tad bit expensive, but it wouldn't be the first time I've ran black 4 mana draw spells.
No, they just usually come with an upside, like pick 2 out of 3 or something like that. Again, certainly a playable card. I'll end up running this, but I'm just not going to pick it highly.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're certainly running it, but not necessarily overjoyed to do so. 2/5?
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Great. Essence Infusion, 2 mana, sorcery speed. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature. It gains lifelink until end of turn. Okay, so this has a little bit of synergy with both of the schools, right? It's got the life gain for Witherbloom, and it has the +1/+1 counters for the Silver Quill. So a highly synergistic card, but it is sorcery speed. But 2 +1/+1 counters for 2 is actually not bad.
Yeah, I actually think this is probably going to be more impactful in Silver Quill just because of all the flyers that deck is going to likely end up having. So putting the counters are going to be better. But you're right, it fits in both decks. I just really don't like sorcery speed combat tricks. It's not even really a combat trick.
Yeah, it's not really a combat trick. It's more like more akin to casting. Granted that was on a body, but this gives some other bonuses too. The 3/2 cat for 4 that put like 2 counters on creatures. So it's more of like a tempo play, like building up your board really big and getting into racing situations very quickly. So if you go like 2-drop, 3-drop, this and a 2-drop on turn 4, like, you're being very aggressive. And in a Silver Quill deck, like you were saying, with some flyers, like, that could just be absolutely devastating.
Yeah, you might as well just treat this as an enchantment. Right, there's an aura. There's an aura that has like ETB lifelink till end of turn.
But it also splits it between 2 characters.
No, it's on one creature.
Oh, never mind. Oh, that's slightly worse. I thought it was on up to 2 characters. Yeah, it is slightly worse.
It's just asking to get 2 for 1. This card. I've got it at like a 1/5. If you have enough synergy, then I can see playing it. But the average deck, I'm not going.
Yeah, I tend to run like one like iffy combat trick. I'm not excited to run this, but like when you're short on playables, like this is definitely something I can see myself running and not be particularly happy about it. So I'm gonna give it a 2.
Okay.
Because it's like I said, it's something that will make it into your deck sometimes, right? Like that's the chaff that you're very unhappy to be playing without the synergy for it. Eye Witch. This thing's ugly.
Kind of like the art of it.
It has no snoot to boop.
That's true.
You just
Snoop Boop would be poking him in the eye.
Poking in the eye, yeah. It's a 1/1 flyer for 1. When it dies, you learn. Okay, so like, fine.
Yeah, 1 mana 1/1 flyers have been better lately. Or 1 mana 1 power flyers at least. Just typically I don't like those cards, but this has a pretty good ability. Presuming of course, that you have the requisite lessons to make this good. But I've got a couple. Yeah, I mean, the body that there's even if you're trading for a 2/1 token, you're going to probably get some value out of it. And there are a lot of 2/1 flying tokens in this set.
That's true. 2/1 flying tokens is a good reason to have this card. I agree with that. If you have any learn, I'm happy. Or if you have any lessons, I'm happy to run this. If you don't, then probably not.
Yeah, I'm not playing this card if I don't have a couple lessons. But if I do, I'm happy to run it. It's like a 2/5 for me.
Really?
Well, I'm presuming that getting 1 or 2 lessons is not going to be.
That's true.
Not having a lesson themed deck or learn themed deck, but having a couple. If I'm wrong on that, then yeah, this is much lower.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping that they'll also just be better learn abilities. Or like learn will be on better cards as well, which makes this a higher cut for me.
That's true. Yeah.
I'm on the 2 train. All right.
Yeah.
Lunk. That's pretty flavorful card. I like it for school. 2 mana, target creature gets neg X, where until end of turn, where X is 7 minus the number of cards in that minus the number of cards in that creature's controller's hand. Okay. So if they have no cards in hand, it's 7.
Yep.
Okay. At its worst, it's probably neg 2 for 2.
Yeah, it's a cheap removal spell that is better late game, which is a little weird. And there are going to be times where it can't kill what you want it to kill, which is unfortunate, but that's always true for 2 mana removal spells.
It feels like a strong card because it's always going to kill, like, the later the game, the bigger the creature is, the earlier game. Like, if you're casting this on turn 3, it's probably only neg 2, but, like, that's going to kill most of the things your opponent has out on turn 2 and 3, right? So, like, it's weird that it scales with the creatures through the pacing of the game.
Yeah, I think this is a good card. Now, beware if you're casting this into, like, 4 open mana in black and they draw 2 cards in response.
It's also instant speed, so it's not just like straight kill creatures. Like it could just help you trade, like,
yeah,
block it. Sometimes you just need neg 1 to make your trade no longer a trade, and you just get a lot of value.
Yeah, I think this card's very good.
Prevents combat tricks if they were to like pump theirs, and you're like, okay, shrink it in response. That seems great. I like this card a ton.
Yeah, I think this card's very good. I don't think it's as good as Baleful Mastery for removal, but I think it's right below there.
Yeah. I agree with that. I'm probably still in the ballpark of a 4, though. I agree. I think Baleful Mastery is probably is better, but like it's weird that we just kind of said premium removal goes in 4, and this feels pretty good and flexible to me.
Yeah, I think it's just enough worse that I would have it at a 3.5, but we're in the same ballpark.
Because we also rate the ones that like destroy target creature power 3 or less at a 3.5, and this feels better than that.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like in this weird like range where maybe Baleful Mastery should have been, you know, a 4.2 because it's better than our other 4s. Yeah, I'll just stick it in the 4 range. Happy to play as many of those as I can get. It's got like a really weird restrictive downside, but like that doesn't seem like it will be a big problem. Go blank. 3 mana sorcery speed. Target player discards 2 cards, then exile all cards from that player's graveyard. Worst case scenario, this seems like a great sideboard card against the Lorenhold decks, right?
Yeah, it's good against Lorehold. It's good against slow controlling decks. I mean, this is, every set we get a Mind Rot variant. It's usually not an uncommon, which is a little interesting. It's usually a common, but this card's fine. You play it, but you play it most of the time, I would say, in your black decks, but not necessarily every time.
Yeah, it's weird. There are a lot of sets where I just don't like the Mind Rot abilities, and then what was the last one where it was just like insane?
I mean, even Kaldheim, it was because you had Skull Raid.
Yeah, not Skull Raid, the one before that, where it was just like Mind Drain. Yeah. Mind Drain was just nuts in that format for whatever reason. And then this, I'm definitely happy to pick up. And then even if I decide to cut it because it's not particularly good for the discard factor, I would love to have 2 or 3 of these in my board just in case we go against the Witherbloom. Like even that stupid alligator, the brackish trudge, right? You just kill it, which is great.
Agreed. Yeah, it's it's a card, just like you said, you're gonna play it most of the time, sideboard it sometimes, but you're always happy to have it.
Are you in the 2.5, 3 range?
Yep.
Which one?
2.5. 2.5.
Great. All right, we got another learn card. Hunt for specimens. Create a 1 black and green pest creature that drains and it learns. So 2 mana, create a dude and learn.
So just yeah, I like that, but just for going forward, the pests don't drain; it's just gain a life.
Yes, I for some reason I got that stuck in my head, and even though I keep reading it, I can't get it out.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean this is really like basically cycle and create a 1/1. Is the idea behind the card, right? You pay 2, go get a lesson, and make a 1/1 in the process.
Yeah, so if you have some of the like the life gain drain synergies, right? So I know a lot of the multicolor cards, anytime you gain a life, you drain is a thing. I kind of like the 1/1 flyer better, but the 1/1 flyer needs to die for you to learn. So if you really need to learn, or if you have good lessons, then this is better because you can like kind of control when that happens.
Yeah, we obviously haven't seen the whole set yet, but there seem to be some, I don't know how many, but some X1s that the 1/1s can block as well. I've seen a few 2/1s running around, so the token's probably not irrelevant.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'd rather have a 1/1 flyer most of the time, but again, I think the difference in learn ability is pretty neat.
Yeah, agreed. I think this is probably in the same ballpark as iTwitch. Better learn because you can control it. More expensive though, and a worse body.
Slightly worse body. What do you put it as?
I've got it at 2.
Okay.
Play it. Obviously, these cards are going to scale up the better your lessons.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm a little bit higher on it, but not by much. Probably not enough to bump it up to a full 2/5. Target creature gets +2, -2 until end of turn, so that's great. Kind of doubles as like a combat pump spell or removal spell.
Yeah, we see like Disfigure was always a fairly premium removal spell at 1 mana, -2, and this has different flexibility than that does, but it's still a very good card because you can use it on your own creatures. Now you can't really use it as a combat trick on them as well, like on their creature, as well as you could, straight -2, but the fact that you can use it on your own makes up for that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the situation, right? If it's a smaller creature that they're pumping or whatever. Or if they double block.
Yeah. I mean, there's still times when it's great. You can't attack a 3/3 into a 3/3 and make theirs into a 1/1 to eat it.
Yeah, so it's definitely different flexibility, but
Yeah.
it does seem like it has enough flexibility. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely, especially at 1 mana.
Yeah. What do you like for this rating?
I have this at a 3.
Wow, that's actually pretty high for you for a combat trick. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's because I view this more as a removal spell than a combat trick.
That's true. I agree with that. Neg 2. Yeah, no, I think that's correct.
1 mana to kill an X2 is almost always going to trade up. Sometimes as much as for a 3-drop or even a 4-drop sometimes.
Tempest Fox, thank you so much. Appreciate the 9 months of support. All right, Leech Fanatic. As long as it's your turn, Leech Fanatic has lifelink. Great. A bear with a fair amount of upside.
Yeah, nothing wrong with this card. We had 2 mana 2/2 that sometimes had lifelink. Was it in Zendikar? That we played all the time. That if you had another cleric.
Cleric, yep.
And this is obviously easier because it's always going to happen at least on your turn. Great in aggressive decks. Worse in control decks, but still a bear, so that's fine.
Yeah. What are you thinking score-wise?
A 2/5 that's going to scale up in Witherbloom if you've got enough synergy.
Yeah, I like that. I think there'll be enough, even if you're not in Witherbloom, like there's enough synergy with just like the arrogant poet, things like that, which is not like necessarily any of those Witherbloom payoffs, but like lifelink is a pretty valuable thing to have. The card that makes you draw 2, both players lose 2. Something like this can definitely tip the scale early game, so I like it a lot for curve rounding.
Keeping an eye on keywords for that white card that gains a bunch of keywords if you have something else that has it.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Mage Hunter. 4 mana, 3/4. Whenever your opponent casts or copies an instant or sorcery, they lose 1 life. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's like inverse Magecraft. Whenever they do it, something happens. It's gonna be really good against some decks. But no matter what, it's fine. 4 mana 3/4 is around where you're gonna play.
I really liked that 3/4 landfall lizard that pinged them.
Yeah.
This feels a bit like that.
It does. This is... Yeah, I think this is going to be better probably in Silver Quill because it's a little more aggressive. Although just, having something that can sit and gum up the ground and occasionally drain them out is going to be useful in any black.
Yeah, like in the deck where you're making a ton of pests and stuff, I feel like maybe you're not making that much damage, but you're like, you gain a life and then drain a life with the Lord, and then this thing pings them each time they cast a spell. This actually feels kind of like it's got the Witherbloom game planned in mind, actually.
Yeah, I think you're just gonna... The good thing, one thing I like about the card a lot is it's just gonna force them to spend their first removal spell on this.
Yeah, I like that. And late game, it just kind of makes everything so much more restrictive.
Yeah, absolutely. Combat tricks awkward for them.
Yeah, assuming there's not too many 4-drops, and it seems like kind of a... I've seen a lot of 2 and 3s that we've been pretty happy with in our colors. Assuming that the 4-drop slot's not super full, I'd be happy to run this, I think, at like a 3.
Yeah, agreed.
Great.
3 sounds right. Alright, Mage Hunter's Onslaught. 2 black sorcery, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Whenever a creature blocks this turn, its controller loses 1 life. So this is your, common unconditional black removal spell that we always see in every set. It's a good card. Not sure how impactful the second clause is going to be, but it's not nothing.
Yeah, it's certainly not a bad thing. 4 mana destroy a creature, like we've definitely paid that cost before. Pretty happy to cast it even without the other thing. But if you kill their largest creature and then send in and they have have some dirtily dudes, you might get a few extra triggers off of it.
Yeah. I don't know. This is in that 3/5 to 4 range as premium removal for me.
Yeah, I agree. I like destroying creatures.
Agreed.
Necrofumes. As an additional cost to cast the spell, exile a creature you control. Exile target creature or planeswalker for 3 mana, but it's a lesson, so it's possibly free, which I like. And we've seen 2 low 1 or 2 mana learn spells already that we have already decided we're pretty happy to play, so you're just getting this card for free.
Yeah, I really like this card. We saw one of these cards in white where, usually it's bad because it's a 2-for-1, but it's a lesson, you're getting it for free, so it's not really a 2-for-1 anymore. As long as you're getting some value out of the learn spell.
Yeah.
Both black, white, and black, green are making tokens you're happy to sacrifice, more so the 1/1s than the 2/1 flyers, but, if you have a token or a random, 2-drop, this is, just unconditional removal. As long as you got something you can sacrifice. I think this card's great.
Having to have something to sacrifice, I think, is the definition of conditional, though.
Sure, yeah. I just mean it can kill anything.
Yeah, no, I agree. That alone, and the counter of like maybe you don't have learn spells worth their own weight, makes me a lot more hesitant to be excited about this card. But I think if you have those learn spells, that's going to be the key. If we're getting this card for free into our hand, I'm always excited. If it's far and few between, or if I'm playing cards that are so underwhelming that it's kind of just a wash there, then again, I'm not very happy. So 3/5?
Yeah, I think you need one of two things. You either need, like you said, the learn spells to pull their weight, or you need to be sacrificing basically a token.
Yeah, if my deck has like infinite pest tokens, great, I'll even mainboard this card, no problem.
So that's it. I don't know if we want to get into this. That's an interesting question. Do you mainboard lessons?
This will be the first one I've seen that I pretty much would mainboard, but again, it's got that caveat of having to have a very tokeny oriented deck with a ton of things that are worth sacrificing, that have gotten their value, like maybe like a 1/1 that comes into play, makes your opponent discard a card. Those kinds of things make me happy to run these spells, but otherwise, usually not.
I agree. I think though I think all lessons for me I'm keeping in my sideboard as long as I have 2 learn spells.
Yes. With the exception so far of maybe this one, based on like... No, I mean, if you've got 2 good learn spells, yeah, that's probably better.
Yeah, 2 that I actually want to play.
Yes, yeah, I like that plan. Great, moving right along.
All right, next up we have Novice Dissector. 3 and a black for a 3/3 Troll Warlock. You can pay 1, sack a creature, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and you can only do this as a sorcery.
It's interesting, put a +1/+1 on target creature. Typically, it's put a +1/+1 on this creature, which is very specific. You know what I'm talking about? Like the little worm, or the like, well, I forget what it was, centipede or something. Like they always have these kinds of abilities.
Yeah, there's usually something like this in every set. Slightly overcosted 3 or 4 drop that can grow. In this case, or can grow other things.
Yeah, the fact that you can do it at sorcery speed is kind of a big poop, but the pest deck wants this, but nothing else really does.
Yeah, I think I'm not playing this unless I have a significant number of pests. But if you do, this could be a decent payoff.
Yeah, I think it's a filler card at best too, with some upside.
Agreed.
Great. Auric Lore Mage. It is a 4 mana 3/3. Search your library for a card, put that into your graveyard, then shuffle. If it's an instant or sorcery card, put a +1/+1 counter on this.
So this is interesting. The ability doesn't seem that useful and limited so far.
Not in these colors.
At black, yeah, in black. But there is, you know, we've seen some synergy, right? You can go get the crocodile and put it into your hand, or the brackish trudge and put it into your graveyard. Um, you
That's
can get
true.
some instant sorceries that just aren't particularly useful anymore
So
out of your deck.
I'm actually thinking that there's other reasons to run this other than the +1/+1 counter. So like I feel like most of my instant sorceries in my deck are worth more than +1/+1 counter. Now, unless it's like, you know, if I'm way ahead and it's like a lethal target, sure. But you could thin your deck for like board stalls. You could put back creatures, pull out creatures like you said that synergize with the rest of your deck, either the crocodile or like you often in Wither Bloom have like cards that will recur as well, I think.
Yep.
So it will also, even though its ability to +1/+1 counter itself maybe is not worth it in most cases, it does have a ton of other synergy with potentially other cards.
Yeah, just scrolling through black, there's a 1-mana frog that you can exile from your graveyard to draw a card.
Right.
So that's another one you can do. So there's some synergy, but on its own, you know, it's probably like a 2/5.
Yeah, on its own, I'm not a huge fan of it. Again, like removing spells from your deck is going to increase the ratio of lands as well, which is going to like help flood you out. And I'd much rather be drawing the spells, I think. I don't know if there's a whole lot of spells I would have in my deck that are worth like equal to or less than a 1/1 counter.
Yeah, the only one I can really think of is like the mind rot effects, like late in the game when they're not going to have cards in their hand.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing. But you're right. You know, if you're playing spells that aren't worth the 1/1 counter, then you've got a pretty bad deck.
And then again, you remove 2 or 3 spells out of your deck, like you are definitely going to be drawing more lands.
Yeah. Now you can also just use this to pull lands out of your.
That was the other thing I was saying in the beginning, was it thins your deck late in the game when you're more board stalled, and that could be quite useful.
Yep.
Great, take out 5 lands over, you know, a couple of turns, and now you're just not drawing anymore. I think it's like a filler card. I put it at like a 2/5. If you've got some other synergies like the stupid crocodile, probably goes up to a 3.
Agreed. Yep, 2/5 with some upside.
Again, very underwhelming for a rare, right, guys?
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead.
Plum of the Forbidden. Sorry, this looked like small text. One of the black instant. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you may sacrifice one or more creatures. When you do, copy the spell for each creature sacrificed this way. You draw a card and you lose a life.
Posty makes a good comment, potentially rebound spells, right? But rebound you still have to cast. So it's not really a thing. Is there any buyback? I think there's one buyback.
Flashback in Mystical Archives.
Yeah, so it's not rebound that would be good. It's the flashback. Great.
This is an interesting card again. It's going to play into your token theme decks. This also works pretty well with Magecraft. But it's pretty low impact on its face, right? 2 mana to, well, basically cycle and lose a life. With the chance to do more.
Yes. Unexciting, I agree.
Again, if you're making a whole lot of tokens.
Storm deck!
Yeah, making a whole lot of tokens, or you've got Storm or Magecraft stuff going on, then sure, but we haven't actually seen any Magecraft in black.
It's instant speed, so you can do it in response to like removal as well, which is okay.
Yep. Kind of like a Village Rites effect.
Yeah, not excited about this, but
it'll find its way into some of your decks.
Yeah.
I've got it at 2.
I agree with 2. Poet's Quill. When it enters the battlefield, learn. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has lifelink. Huh. I actually typically don't like a lot of equipments, but this one seems pretty good value.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I generally don't enjoy equipment, but this is a fairly cheap cost. It replaces itself. It's got a decent effect, and it's a cheap equip cost, which is the most important to me out of all of that.
I agree. Yeah, this card is, and getting the learn ability is just going to be nuts too.
Yeah, it's going to be great in black-green, where you're gaining a bunch of life with it. Great in black-white to stick on 2/1 flying tokens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very happy with this card.
Agreed.
Don't think it's going to win the game on its own.
No.
but it's
It
very good.
like any equipment, it needs a body, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I think this is definitely a 4.
I've got it for you.
Great. Planeswalker, do we need to read this or should we just give it a 5? It's got tiny text.
Probably read it. It's a 5. I'll read the small text. Professor Onyx is a 4/black legendary planeswalker Liliana with 5 loyalty counters. It has a static ability as Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 2 and you gain 2. +1, you lose a life. Look at the top 3 cards of your deck, put 1 into your hand and the rest into your graveyard. -3, each opponent sacrifices a creature with the greatest power among creatures they control. -8, each opponent may discard a card. If they don't, they lose 3 life. Do this 6 more times.
I can't wait to play 2HG.
Professor Onyx, plumb the forbidden, sack something. You all lose 8.
All right, 5, moving along.
Yep.
It's funny, like the common 1 sentence cards we spend more time on than the Planeswalkers that do like a bajillion things.
Planeswalker, you take it. End of story.
That's the nice thing about Limited, though. Like when you're doing constructed set reviews, they like ignore 80% of the cards, whereas we could just ignore the powerful ones and be like, yeah, whatever. Bomb's doing stupid things. Moving on.
Take it, be happy, you probably win.
For 1 mana instant, choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Gains indestructible until end of turn. It's got some flexibility. I like flexibility.
Yeah. It's a good effect with indestructibility, or you can leave a lasting effect. It's cheap. This is the kind of combat trick I'll actually play.
Yeah, it is moderately low impact, but it's 1 mana. So like you'll find +2/+0 and indestructible, or +2/+0 and comes back into play. But those are usually 3 mana.
Yeah, and we saw in the last set the Snakeskin Veil for 1 green, hexproof instead of indestructible, and it did both. But that card really overperformed.
Yes.
This isn't quite as good as that.
We have Snakeskin Veil at a 3 in this format because it's reprinted in the special cards.
Oh, that's right. It is in the archive. Yeah, I don't think it's quite as good as that, but it's probably right below it.
Yeah,
like a 2.5 for me.
I like it at a 2.5. But apparently my brain wants it at a 3.5 because I keep typing it over and over again. Great.
It's funny that in terms of combat tricks, indestructible actually is probably worse than hexproof. Because
of exile as well.
Exile or -X effects.
Yep, which we've seen both a fair amount of.
The only thing it does...
Go ahead.
The only thing it does better is it protects you against like sweepers.
Correct. Which we did see a few of as well. When promising Dust Mage dies, if it had a +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card. That's a fair amount of upside in the right deck. Silver Quill has a ton of counters, right? A lot of counter synergy, so this is a pretty good card.
Yeah, we've seen a few cards already in black spells that are putting counters on things.
Yep, and the white put counters on things. Creatures came into play putting counters on things. So on its face, it's a 2, but like with any amount of synergy, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Give it a 2.5.
I would say, yeah. It's not gonna... You're gonna play this even without a ton of synergy because as long as you got a couple things, it's worth the upside.
All right, moving on.
Sedgemoor Witch. 2 and a black for a 3/2 menace. It has ward, so pay 3 life. So you can pay 3 life and or the opponent would have to pay 3 life to target this or it gets countered. Magecraft, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token with when the creature dies, you gain 1 life.
Now that seems more impactful.
Yep, that seems like a rare full of text. 3 mana, 3/2 menace on its own is good.
Yeah.
Play that card all the time. It's hard to kill this. It's going to make them pay an extra cost to do so. And you're starting to create tokens with every spell you cast. All those things are not the highest impact, but they're all good.
Yeah, I think that the ward pay 3 life is a little underwhelming. I like the ones that you can't target. Yeah. Early game, like when you're playing this on 3 life is not a big deal for an opponent, right?
No.
So that's probably the least impressive part of this card for me. But I mean, it's better than not being there, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just a small bonus.
Right. It's not winning the game quickly, but I think it's very good.
Yeah, you need a decent amount of spells to get some real value out of this. But even if you don't get a ton of value, you're still getting a 3-mana 3/2 menace, which I'm going to play in every deck anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just a lot of incremental value here. I've got this around a 3/5.
Okay, I was a little higher on it. I had it at a 4. I think the pest tokens are going to be pretty valuable.
Yeah, they very well could be.
4 mana, 3/2 flyer. Target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life for 6 mana. There was a similar card, it was only a 2-drop though, that I think cost about 6 mana to drain 1. And I definitely won lots of games with that card.
Yeah, you get one of these like mana sink, lose life effects for your opponent, or in this case, drain life effects in black in a lot of sets. We had the 3/7 in the last set.
Yep.
That did it. This is on a really nice body though, a 2/3 flyer. Now it's a little overpriced at 4 mana, but the ability for sure makes up for that.
Yeah, it's a late game mana sink, so it's like not going to come in handy all the time, but it by itself is an evasive creature that blocks well enough for a flyer. Pretty happy. Like you said, it's 1 mana extra for what I would expect to see for its like body, but it's got a great mana sink. And the fact that it's draining as opposed to just losing 2, which is typical, means it will trigger any of your other Witherbloom things that say whenever you gain life, do X. So it could be like drain, and then you drain again, right? Because you gained life. So great synergies.
Yeah, it's a little weird putting this effect on a 2-power flyer because it's already got that kind of reach ability. But that's okay. 2 good things together. Not going to complain about it.
Yeah, right? It could just be on like a dirtily 1/4 or something. Yeah. But like, sure, I can bash you a little bit, and then if you were to stabilize or get a bigger flyer, then I can still just drain you out.
Yeah, and it also lets you double the clock if they don't. You can hit them for 2 and drain them for 2.
Yeah, because it's not a tap ability, which is great.
Yeah.
What are you thinking score-wise?
I've got it at a 3 because I really like the 2/3 body against the 2/1 flying tokens.
Yeah, I actually have it at a 3 too. I feel like it's getting close to a 3/5, but I think that the mana ability is just so expensive that it's not going to come in handy in enough games to like... It's just a little too slow for me to want to give it any higher of a rating.
Yeah, agreed.
Great. We have an Inkcaster, 5 mana 2/2. What in Jiminy Christmas? This better do something amazing. When it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Okay, it's a 5 mana 3/3. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it attacks, each opponent loses and you gain. Okay, that does a lot of stuff. Wow, this is amazing synergy for Silverquill. Holy smokes.
Yeah, it is.
And it's an uncommon. Are you double thinking that sorcery speed put 2/+1 counters for?
No, it still only targets 1. It gets you 1 trigger. I don't know. This card feels like it's going to end up either winning you the game or being absolutely terrible.
Yeah, but typically when you're drafting these uncommons, like they're pretty easy to build around. Like this is the hardest piece of the puzzle. So like if you have this piece, usually the rest of the assembly is not that hard. I think it's the other way around, where it's like those counter cards are pretty bad unless you have these. Whereas like if you have these, you probably have more than enough of the other stuff.
Agreed. I do think it's more so on the counter cards. You're right. You've got to have a pretty good board for this to really be good. And at that point, you're already in a pretty good shape, I would think. I don't know. These are the type of cards I struggle with.
Yeah, I mean, if you have 1 Inkling, you put the counter on it, you're now hitting them for 4 damage a turn with that Inkling. And that's without any other synergies in the deck, which seems to be pretty easy to come across.
Yeah, But I guess it's one of those, right? They kill that Inkling, and now you've got a 5-mana 2/2.
Well, you mean you're saying that they had to kill the Inkling because of it, right? So like it ate a removal spell.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I seem to when I draft these type of cards, they always end up failing. Maybe that's just because I'm not good at drafting that deck.
That's similar to me and the more control-y decks that you tend to like. I don't tend to have the best success with them. I like this card a lot.
I think it has incredibly high upside and I think very low ceiling. Or very low floor, sorry.
So you put it at like what, a 3?
It's a card I almost want to do a split rating.
That's fair.
At like a 1/5, 3/5 or something like that.
Okay. I'm pretty happy with it on its face if it's hitting like any creature, so I'm a tad bit higher on it. Umbra Juke. 3 mana, choose one, target player sacrifices a planeswalker, creature or planeswalker, or create a 2/1 white and black Inkling with flying. It's instant speed. So it's like the Flash Rogue that was 3 mana, flash in, mill 2 kind of thing at the bottom.
Yeah, this is a good card. I mean, neither one of these effects is amazing on its own. For 3 mana, Edict effects, the sacrifice effects are often pretty bad and limited, but the fact that you can always at least make a 2/1 flyer instead if you're at that point makes this a lot better.
Yeah, I also think it's instant speed, which some of them aren't, so I think that's a lot better as well.
Yep. This is a card that's good for its flexibility, not necessarily, neither effect is that powerful.
Yeah, I agree
combined,
with that.
Combined, I like the card.
I agree. Score?
I have it probably at a 3. Maybe it's going to depend a little bit on the context of your deck, which a lot of cards do, of course, but I think this is
Yeah, it's kind of on the border between a 3 and a 3/5 for me.
Yeah, I think this goes down if you have a lot of other good removal, and goes up if you don't, and obviously goes up if you have good synergy with the tokens and counters like that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we got a 1/1 frog for 1. It's got Menace, and if you exile it from your graveyard, you draw a card and lose 1 life. Seems fine.
Yeah.
It's pretty low impact on its own, but like it replaces itself. If I have anything that like any aggressive cards that are putting +1/+1 counters and getting triggers, then you want like early bodies, but
yeah, it's a really low impact card. I'm probably only playing this if I have some sort of good synergies with it. Whether it be counters or something like Auric or Mage, where I can get it and just put it right into my graveyard.
Yep.
But it's fine if you have something like that.
Yeah, I agree. It's not not great on its own, but it's got a little bit of synergy upside.
Yeah, I think on its face the card is just like a 1/5.
Yep.
With some upside.
Great. And that's it, guys. We are done with black. This one was a little bit shorter, 53 minutes. Good job, Yanks.
All right, you're getting there.
All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed the black review. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, the next video for red will be up today, actually. These should be coming out at roughly the same time. So I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys. I'd like to give a special thank you to those of you who have signed up for our Patreon. I couldn't make this content without you. Also to Cool Stuff Inc. and KMC Sleeves for supporting the channel as well. Definitely check them out and use our discount codes to support the channel.